How old were you when you started making jewelry?
I was probably 14 years old.
Do you make jewelry for a living? How long and why did you decide to?
I do make it for a living. I do enchantments by Bonnie. I have a studio in my home. However, I suggest that you go to college first and get an education because this is a sideline thing. As an artist, they have a term starving artists for a reason because you don't make a lot off your art. However, you can score big and maybe be a designer to the stars, but you got to start somewhere and start little and move on to big.
How did you know you were good at making jewelry?
Actually, I did not. What happened in the old days, and that was back in the 60s, we didn't have much material to work with. We had rhinestones and pearls, and then I was lucky enough to hit the love bead era, the hippie era, and I would take things apart because I didn't like the way they looked. I wanted my touch on it, and sometimes I'd end up with an amazing thing that was cool and my friends wanted copies of, and other times I ended up with a handful of beads that was just a big mess. So you had to experiment, so that's it.
How do you come up with the symbols that you use for your jewelry?
Well, I like everything that's blingy, and I like fairies, and I like anything that's magical. So I do a lot of magical things, and there's, as we know, rocks have energy. That's why we had crystals in our watches. There's so many things. So the symbols, I'm not sure, the symbols to me would be the fairies, and I just want people to smile when they see it and just go to a different place. The dragons, the fairies, that kind of happy experience.
What kind of materials work well together and which ones do not?
Well, I think everything works well together because you can take junk and make it into jewelry. I've taken chimes off my front porch because it sounded pretty and I wanted to wear them and have that little sound. I've taken turtle shells that my dogs have brought me back and cut down and made into a living tribute to them. I've taken coal. I got to teach coal jewelry classes. We've learned to stabilize it and make it so it doesn't rub off or break. I've taken belt buckles and all kinds of rocks. So as far as I'm concerned, all my materials work one way or the other.
How do you decide what you want to use to make the pieces?
Well, it just hits me. It's like I'm thinking of, I'll be walking along a road and I'll find a stone. I'll be looking at, like I said, my porch and there's those chimes. I'll be thinking about a stone that's amazing. I'll be walking through Goodwill store and see a belt buckle. And then I'll think, well, this needs to be somewhere else around my neck. So that's how I find them, and it just strikes me. It's just that magical creative moment that goes, aha.
How do you know when the piece is finished?
Well, you kind of don't, because I've kind of worked around them, and sometimes I go, oh, wait a minute, I want to add this to it. So they're always a never-ending, in progress piece. So it's always there, and there's always room to change. And when I know I'm finished is when somebody says, I want that piece. And I try to make it so they can have it.
How do you figure out what you want to make?
It just strikes me. I just don't do figuring what I can. To me, when I create, I want to sit down at a messy place full of different beads. And I don't like order because I don't see any kind of creativity in order. I have to see a big mess in front of me. So that's how I decide. And then when I sit down to do it, it's like I'm not even doing it. It's like I have this being that takes over me and just starts putting things together, and then it comes out one way or the other, good or bad.
It says, who are you designing for, and do you take special orders or do you make what you want and just sell them?
I make what I want and sell them. I do take special orders. I've done conservative jewelry, which I have a hard time with. My daughter's very conservative, up into really wild and crazy things that you add from collections of maybe your old granny had, or so I do all three.
Do you ever make anything with people's birthstones in them?
Absolutely. I love to use the real stones. I am not at liberty to use diamonds. I have used some kind of rubies, but they're just a cheaper version of rubies. So I use the semi-precious stones, and we always have semi-precious birthstones too. So like mine is a moonstone, and that's, thank goodness, not a diamond like April.
What advice do you have for young people thinking about going into the jewelry business or any other crafts career?
I say go for it. Do that in your spare time. I think it's amazing because the more creative you get into, and don't limit yourself to one venue of art. You need to branch out, like even drawing, which I'm horrible at, but you just venture out, including music, including anything. That makes your brain move amazingly fast, and you can create more and more, and you can go over the limit. So I'd say anything goes. So I'd say go for it. However, I would say get your education first, become a teacher, or I became a theater major, which really wasn't that good either. Nothing pays the bills. The teacher will pay the bills. So I took special ed, and I think, that will take care of it, and you can do all those little theatery and things on the sideline till you retire, or you can start your sideline business, because now we've got the internet that makes it possible to get out there with eBay and your own site.